in the developmental system, names came out and said, hey, Bill DeMott, questionable trainer, did, these allegations. Again, I hear that sort of stuff and it's like, okay, what actually happened? Because I believe there's always three sides to the story, right? There's this person's side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. From you, when these certain allegations started coming out about you, how did you take them on board? Like, were you like, was this a complete shock to you? Was it like, oh shit, maybe I pressed it a little bit too hard here? Like, what was your take on it?
No, it wasn't a shock. And here's why it's not a shock. If you go through the timetable of all the Bill bashing, all of these allegations or complaints and accusations came from people who no longer had a job. And I'll say this till the day I die. If things were that bad for you or you were put in a position, you're with a company that puts their talent first. If you were having such a hard time or felt mistreated or being abused or mishandled, why wasn't it brought up while you were employed? Especially when a company tells you how important you are, pretty much entitles you to have free speech and all these other things. You're in a company that has cameras everywhere in the building and everything's recorded. Nothing goes unseen. And if you were that unhappy, why would you wait, or why would you put up with that as long as you were getting paid? And then for all the names that were out there, respectfully, I say, are they still in the business? Was the business that important to them? Or is it easier to, blame someone else for your effort or, lack of enthusiasm or whatever the case is? Whatever the reason is, you're no longer in the business. One person can do that. And if that's the case, I was done with the WWE in 2007. Mm-hmm. Gone for 4 years, had my own wrestling school, did some shows, but I was working at FedEx, minding my own business, going about my life.
Yeah.
And if it was that bad, do you honestly think WWE would come back to me and say, hey, we got this system. We want to get it running the right way. We want you to take over the system. And here's our plan for the future. Talking about NXT, the Performance Center, all these things. So here come the old stories again, because on the internet, you can bring something up and it's brand new. And hey, wait a minute, that guy's getting noticed again. We can't have that. Let's try to damage him again. You can only tell the same story so many times before, it's like crying wolf.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about the recent time. WWE came out and said they investigated every accusation and found nothing. So how much of it was Bill DeMott and how much of it was that individual? And I say, of all the people that have something to say and qualms about it, are they in the business contributing and doing things, or they just move on because they stop getting paid? Now, there's people who have trained with me, underneath me, and for years who'll come out and tell you, Bill DeMott can be an asshole. He's tough. Like there's no time for nonsense. And they're some of the most successful people in the business. They didn't tell stories or anything. They just were honest. Yeah, he was tough and I hated it. Those are the same people who send me messages. We stay in contact. I congratulate them on their success. I actually, believe it or not, for people that are listening, I get thanked for how they trained because they were prepared for the WWE. They were prepared for the lifestyle and what happened. And they understood that nothing personal was done. I was doing my job. And what people should understand is if I was that bad, then I wouldn't have a job. My job was to make them better, not to run them out of business, not to make them quit, not to make them feel less than. My job was to lift them up. And so I think as the business has progressed, that's why they're going back to looking for people that were athletes, because you've been coached in some way, shape, or form. And understand a coach isn't there to tear you down. They're there to build you up. And coaches have a certain demeanor. Bill DeMott has a certain way about him. I've been called a drill sergeant. I've been called a hard ass. I've been called all these things. But I stand tall and very proud of where my name is against some of the best in the business of after all these years and what they do, and my relationships with those men and women. So while I get it, and at first it was like, why am I being attacked? And because I know who I am, and it's not true. I hate that people get to just chime in on something and offer an opinion when they don't know. You know, like you said, fans hear it, and that's the gospel. So I became the internet darling for a little while, and that's when it's just time to go. I love the business. I'm not in for the rest of this stuff. But
is that like when you decided to step away from WWE? Like they investigated, they found nothing.
right.
Was it just like were you burnt out at that time? Just going, look, I need to just get the fuck out of here at this stage. Like,
No,
is that where you were at, or
no, honestly, NXT was just taking off. That was our first out of the state of Florida. Our first live events. We're in Ohio, and when all this stuff, because it was brewing for months, right? The Twitters and all these things, and this, and that, and WWE did their due diligence, and everybody investigated. And you're sitting there now every day. Do you walk on eggshells? You do your job. I did my job. So when things came up and the internet was really going crazy, it was a very easy conversation with Triple H. It was very straightforward. I think the world of Paul. I know his vision. I knew what he wanted to do. I was grateful to be part of it, and I wasn't about to tear it down by making this thing bigger than what it was. So I think, and it's not like it goes back to my training with Johnny Rods. I got in this business for a certain reason, but it wasn't to stand there and start pointing fingers and talking trash. And how would me responding to that help the brand NXT and the Performance Center continue to grow? It wouldn't. And you can't win a battle on the internet, no matter what happens. So the more you open your mouth, the more you say things or fuel the fire, the worse it gets. And then the worse it would have got for NXT, the worse it would have got for the Triple H, and the worse it would have got for the Performance Center and all the people that worked so hard. So it's just, I feel like I was a veteran of the business. I worked my way up from being a bump taker to a WWE employee in the head of a department. Yeah, and so that's when you go, let's keep this going. I'm good. Like as a person, I was good with who I am and what I've done, and I wasn't worried about, oh my God, what do people think about me? I knew it. So it's very easy to look Paul in the eye. I resign. Let people think what they want. And if you look at it for the first, he resigned, but a week later, there was nothing else said.
Yeah.
NXT flourishes, the Performance Center grows, worldwide notoriety, NXT, all these things, and the brand continued to grow. Bill DeMott has his life, WWE has their life, and the fans had to find someone else to crucify and pick on. So
did you get a lot of like fan hate from it?
Oh, I get, people don't realize death threats. You actually start thinking about where you go in public because you're afraid for your family and things like that. But no, there were so many more people in support of the decision, and people going, hey man, that's not why I watched this business, and I'm sorry this happened. So, and to those people, I always said thank you, but it left it at that. And people, hey, I was offered thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to come and talk and give my side of it. And I respectfully, no thank you. I was offered an opportunity to come on for a lot of money and tell what I know. Because people had to realize I ran that place. I have every email. I have every report. I have every conversation. I have every file. I have all these things. And I could have become the most dangerous person in wrestling,
Easily.
the business of wrestling. That's not who I am. So it's okay. I'll remove myself from the equation. Clearly, it didn't hurt the business. Clearly, everybody's flourished. And those who were unhappy, I'm sure are unhappy doing something else, but you don't really hear that much about them anymore in the business or on social media. So I think it all comes clean in the wash. And, would I have liked to have been there for another 30 years? I love my job. I mean, I'd go back and be an assistant coach in a heartbeat, but it is what it is.
At a head coach level?
Well, I think it'd be really tough to go back as the head coach again after all this time. And I think people would look at it like, well, why is he coming back?